Hey, good evening, and welcome to another entry into the Diary of a Modern Man, which might be the most pretentious YouTube username ever, or any kind of social on media online presence name ever. But hey, it is what it is. Uh, I wanted to talk today about a few reasons that I would consider myself MGTOW. It stands for Men Going Their Own Way. I'm sure if you've come across this video, you're already familiar with the term. You'll have either searched for the term or found it linked somewhere. As with everything, I don't really just like to rehash things that you will have heard a million times. Oh, I don't want to get divorce raped. Oh, women are crazy. Things like this. I always prefer to offer a slightly more kind of nuanced, specific, and maybe slightly more interesting or kind of facts and factors and perspectives that haven't been kind of done so many times. No disrespect if that's the kind of content that you put out there. That's good for you. That's great. But yeah, anyway, so a couple of reasons, or the few reasons. There's an exhaustive list, but I'll highlight maybe three or four of the key ones that I think are quite relevant to myself. The first one being, and this is a big one, is so few married men seem happy. Like, so few of them. Surely that should be a clue, right? If you want to decide whether it's a good idea to get married, go and look at somebody or talk to somebody who is married, see what they say about it, see what they think about it. I don't want to say nobody because I don't want to get too extreme, but the vast majority of men who are married and who I really interrogate with more than just the odd question, really get into some detailed discussion about. They almost always say something they didn't think was or they don't think was a good idea, and if they could go back, they wouldn't get married, and if they got divorced or if they didn't have kids, they definitely they're only staying together for the kids, which you have to respect, to be fair. But yeah, the key is maybe just avoid that. Don't get yourself into a situation where you're with someone who you're not happy with, and then you've started having kids, and you're a bit trapped, really. But yeah, no one that I see that's married is really selling it to me, or I can maybe count two or three people who seem like it's not an obviously bad choice. Like maybe they're quite happy with it, but they don't seem like they're overwhelmingly. It's just a big dream that marriage is sold to be. They still have to ask the wife for permission on things, and I mean, obviously you should. If you're married, you should be getting someone else's perspective. But why put yourself in that situation where you don't have autonomy over your own decisions? It just seems, why would you do that? So yeah, not men. Very very few men that are married seem happy, and the overwhelming majority say they're not happy, and it wasn't a good decision, and they wouldn't suggest it to other people. When I was doing my degree, and a lot of my fellow colleagues or fellow students. One of them did, they all did gap years, not gap years, sorry, placement years, where you do a year in work in between, I think it's in between your second and third year. I didn't do that, I just wanted to get the degree done. But I remember there was one story that a guy told me that really stuck with me. Is at the end of the day, he was working in an IT company, and at the end of the day, all the guys, all the men, would have a quote unquote meeting. So the workday would finish about 5:30, and from 5:30 until about 7, sometimes on to 8 o'clock in the evening, they would have a meeting. All the guys in the office, which was basic, and these were managers and high level guys and various level guys, and they would have a meeting where basically they would just sit around, drink beer, talk about whatever guys wanted to talk about, eat pizza, play video games, and the reason behind it was most of them didn't want to go home to their wives. They didn't want to go home to their families, and really, I'm a single guy, and sometimes the idea of a family does appeal to me. I imagine it being quite refreshing and quite, you go back after a long day and you've got a warm home full of people, kids that are happy to see you and a wife that greets you with a kiss and a smile. But it's just, that doesn't seem to be what it's like in real life. It just seems like kids that maybe don't respect you, a wife that definitely doesn't respect you, only really complains about what you haven't done, doesn't appreciate any of the things you do. And yeah, I mean, these guys know better than me because they are married and they have been married for a long time. So I have to go with their authority on this. Not my imagination of what it might be like. And they don't want to go home. they just don't want to go home. So that's got to tell you something. Yeah, and that story always kind of stuck with me. It's interesting. It's a little sad. It's kind of funny, but yeah, it certainly doesn't sell you on the idea of marriage. So that's one. Number two. I'm not sure how to word this, but I've written down a woman's challenge is to conquer you, and once they have, they stop trying and they lose interest. And again, this is a generalization, and a lot of, we're speaking about any group, any demographic, you have to speak in generalizations and you have to speak in generalities. So it's not every single woman. When we criticize men or any particular demographic, it's not the entire one. It's not everyone that belongs to that demographic, but we're speaking generally. I've always found with women and any relationships that I've had or any interactions that, in a romantic sense, part of the appeal, and I've always got the most interest when I've not particularly been that interested in them, in a sense of I've not had any emotional obligation towards them, any emotional attachment. Yeah, I sort of make it clear that I could take or leave them, and I do enjoy spending time with them, but it's certainly something I could quite easily live without. And especially when you're younger, it's a bit easier for a woman to break that within a man, and it's a bit easier for the woman to wear that down and quite quickly get you emotionally attached to them, or to some degree. We're not talking an obsession, but some level of attachment to develop. And you invariably, I can't think of one time where that's happened, where there isn't a change, and they don't then start to lose interest in you once you kind of give that away or make that known. Now, it could just be that you start to act in an unattractive way, and that will almost certainly be at least a factor. But once again, why would you want to be involved with someone where once you start to care about them sincerely, they are by definition unattracted to you based on your behavior that results on your sincere affection for them? Why, what's the solution? You just have to have a relationship or any kind of connection with a girl romantically that's devoid of feeling. Well, yeah, that's great now, but at the time it's not very appealing, and it wouldn't be that fulfilling. The best thing is really just to not care and to stay clear and to be upfront with that. But yeah, I've found that, and you hear this from men everywhere, that once you kind of give them what they want, whether that's marriage, whether that's just the emotional investment, and it's the same for both, to be fair. I personally want to conquer women by having sex with them. I feel like once, as a guy, once you've had sex with a girl, you've definitely conquered them. You've laid your flag on their sweet continent. And yeah, there's a part of that where you feel like, okay, job done. And even as a guy, I'm not a MGTOW in the sense that I think men are perfect and women are these horrible demonic creatures. But we're all humans, most of us, and human nature applies to us all. And yeah, there is just a natural thing that once you've got what you wanted from somebody, once you've conquered them in that sense, and you know that they're invested in you, you just naturally you take your foot off the gas a little bit. But so yeah, I do that as well, and guys do that as well. But with women, once they've got that emotional investment, they sort of lose interest, and yeah, that's quite frustrating. In many ways, I really don't think men and women are kind of compatible in any of the ways that a modern relationship tries to make them fit together. I don't think it's realistic at all, and that's part of the reason I would consider myself MGTOW. Is the modern idea and concept of a relationship just doesn't seem natural to me. I don't actually think monogamy is natural in our most base level. Even men that are faithful and women that are faithful can't deny that they're tempted at times. And so on a base level of our natural drives, it's not natural to be monogamous. If it was, you would find that as soon as you had an emotional connection or a physical connection with a partner, that your desires for other people would disappear. That would then, be evident that, okay, monogamy is natural, and once you found that person, they go away. It just doesn't happen. If anything, they become more appealing and a bit more forbidden fruit. So yeah, it's not natural monogamy, and I don't think the modern kind of idea of a relationship is natural. So there's another reason me and a lot of others probably take a step back and just think I'd rather not play this game. It's not something that I think I can win. So yeah, number three, and this is quite an interesting one for me. Let me just think of how to really put this into words. Yeah, I know a lot of nice women, contrary to claims from some people in the community. But I know quite a few nice women who they don't like their partners because they're too nice and too caring. Now, just think about that for a second. Now, again, that's not really uncommon knowledge just in the world. There's people always say nice guys finish last and so on. But I can think of two examples at the moment. So I always have. I'm not trying to sound like a whatever, but I always have kind of interactions with various women going on at any time, and I'm always kind of physically involved with some at any given moment. So there's two that I can think of at the moment that I'm involved with, right? So one of them, we occasionally sleep together, we occasionally hang out, and it's just a nice vibe and it's cool. But she's got two other guys on the scene. She has one guy that is really, really nice to her, and she has another guy. And I know this sounds a bit of an obvious cliched example, but it is 100% true. So she has one guy who's really nice to her and really likes her, and the sex is very affectionate and romantic, and he never argues with her, and he's very relaxed, and he's not possessive or any of the traits that women say they want in a guy. He has all the positives. And there's another guy that likes her, and she's been on and off with him for a year or so in the past, and she's currently not with him, but he's trying to get her back. And he's quite abusive. I don't think he's ever physically been abusive, but he's quite emotionally abusive. He's quite aggressive. He's very possessive. He's one of those who makes her delete all her friends, like male friends, and have no interactions with other males, which, to be fair, makes a lot of sense in her case. But yeah, he's very possessive. He's not a particularly nice guy, and he's just a very domineering guy. And she's broke up with him because, blah, blah, blah. She thinks she deserves better, which I won't comment on. So out of these two guys, guess which one she likes the most? The one that she's currently with, who's really, really nice and would create a very emotionally positive environment for her to grow and develop and all the things that women say they want. Or the guy that's abusive and a bit of a dick. Obviously, it's the second guy. She was even telling me, I saw her 2 or 3 days ago, and she was telling me that, yeah, she's bored. She's bored with the nice guy, and she knows she shouldn't go back. And I was laughing. I was laughing so hard, because for a while as well, you want to help people. Your natural desire is to say, look, you can do better. Come on, stick with a nice guy. He's a nice guy. He'll be good for you. But I've realized long ago, you really can't, especially when it comes to matters of the heart and emotions and things like this, you can't talk people out of things. So I wasn't even going to try and say, look, you should go for this guy. I just laughed and I said, look, you're obviously going to do what you're going to do. We both know what you're going to do. It's hilarious. And yet she can have no complaints. I remember I've known her probably 2 or 3 years. And I remember she used to tell me she was quite lonely. And now she's got two guys not fighting over her, but vying for her attention. And she's obviously going to choose the one that's going to be bad for her. And it's just so funny. And so she can have no complaints in the future when she's, things don't work out and she ends up in a situation where she's unhappy. She had every chance. And again, this is not something that I'm purely bashing women on. I know that I'm more attracted to girls who are a bit fucked up, which is possibly another reason I don't really think a relationship is a great idea for me, because I wouldn't have the best choices, I wouldn't select the best choices either. So I'm not just bashing women here, but I am talking about a woman in this instance. But yeah, she's gonna go for the bad one, and she's gonna end up in a mess, and It's just so yeah. You want to be nice to a girl. If I was ever in a relationship, and the times that I've tried to be in them in the past, you just want to be nice. It doesn't mean you're a pussy or a loser. It just means you're a decent human being, mostly, who just wants to be nice to someone that they're in a relationship with. They don't want to have to be abusive. Don't want to have to kind of keep tabs on, am I expressing too much emotion? Am I treating her too well? You'd rather just be able to I've got guy friends, and the more I like my guy friends, the cooler I am with them. That just makes sense. And the same with me, my guy friends. The closer you get to your guy friends, the better you are with each other, and it just becomes a more positive thing. It doesn't seem to be like that with women. And again, what's the other one that I've put down here? Yeah, there was another girl I actually had a date with this evening. We ended up sleeping together. She's currently also seeing, no, she's not seeing two of the guys. She's got two guys somewhere on the hook, in a sense, in that one guy is really, really nice to her, and she's broke his heart like 5 times, she said. They've been on and off, and about 4 or 5 times she said that she's broken his heart. And yet he just keeps coming back to her. And he's too nice and sensitive and blah, 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 and all the cliche things. And then there's another guy who she was seeing. She started to get emotionally attached to him, and he texted her one day saying, sorry, I'm seeing someone else now, so I won't be able to see you. And lo and behold, she can't stop thinking about him. Like, we ended up sleeping together this evening. And even afterwards, she was she was like wistfully thinking about him. Now, I made it clear from the off that I'm not looking for a relationship. So I sort of literally just see her as a friend, or the beginning of a friendship. So I was happy to talk to her about this and discuss it with her. But yeah, it's just so messed up. It's just so messed up. And she can't stop thinking about the guy who was a bit emotionally distant and has just sacked her off, basically. So you can't really, how can you build anything based on trust with a group of people, aka women, who quite often will like you less and feel less attracted and less attached and just less warm to you, and will treat you worse based on how nice you are to them. It's just so upside down, it doesn't make any sense. And if that's how they want to be, that's fine, that's their prerogative, but count me out, I don't want any part of it. I do have a little asterisk here, and it's something I might get a little stick for, because I know in the MGTOW community there is a turn of phrase which basically, there's a word, nawalt or nawalt or whatever, however you pronounce it, and it's an initialization for not all women are like that, and it's kind of used to, well, anyway, but I'll just kind of explain. It's used to whenever somebody it's used to mock people who say, well, not all women are like that, when the implication is, well, yes, they are. All women are like that. Personally, I don't believe all women are like that. I don't think it makes sense to put to put really strongly defined characteristics and traits. Excuse me. To put really strongly defined characteristics and traits on every single person within a demographic. I think that's it's a little lazy. It's definitely a time saver, but I think it's a little intellectually lazy and sometimes unfair. But that's just me. But yeah, it's not all women, but it is a lot. And the problem is, there's no way to know in advance. There's no way to know, because you can meet all kinds of women with all kinds of different personalities, and some can turn out some way, and the majority will turn out in ways that you don't want. Let's get a drink. Yeah, the majority will turn out with behaviours, eliciting behaviours that you don't want. And so it's basically not worth the risk. There are people who are happily married, but it's the minority. And yeah, there's no way to know beforehand, so it's simply not worth the risk. So yeah, just a bit of an asterisk. I'm not saying this to pander to females. I have absolutely no issue telling people what I think of them and saying something negative about someone if I think it's true. I don't really, like I said, I don't really think men and women, for the most part, are compatible in the current Western society. Maybe in a patriarchy, things work slightly better. But that's a discussion for another time. But yeah, I don't think all women are like that, but I think there's a lot, and like I say, I'm just repeating myself now. There's no way to know, so it's not worth the risk. Just check out. You might have a very happy marriage. You probably won't. You might fall in love with someone and she completely reciprocates and never cheats on you, never breaks your heart, never does anything that would hurt you. But you probably won't. You might put a lot of your time and energy into someone and she'll just reciprocate it and be so grateful, and it'll be a huge worthwhile investment. But you probably won't. That probably won't happen. So yeah, it's not that all women are like that, it's just the majority are, and it's not worth the risk. If you were going to get on an aeroplane and they said, look, there's about a 20% chance, maybe 10, maybe 5% chance, but best case scenario, 20% chance we make it to the other side. You're not going to get on the fucking plane. You're just not. So yeah, of course, there are people who've maybe taken that journey and survived and it's been fine, but the rest just plummet into the ocean or into the side of a mountain or whatever. So those are a few of my thoughts that I think are not always widely covered and not always widely explained in a bit more detail, that I thought might be interesting to share. Let me know what you think.